My name is Daniel, and welcome to the second edition of our TruClub interviews. Today we have Frank Abagnale. Hello, Frank. How are you? Good to see you. So, for those of you who do not know Frank Abagnale, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think most people just know me from the movie Catch Me If You Can, and of course all the things that occurred in that movie. I think what most people don't know is that happened almost 50 years ago, and for the past 40 years I've worked with the FBI for 4 decades. I've helped give over 3,000 presentations and seminars on fraud and identity theft and things of that nature, and I've gotten to work with some of the largest Fortune 100 companies over those 40 years. So that's the thing most people don't know, that side of me. They only know me for the person in the movie.
Wow. And where do you live and work these days?
I make my home now in Charleston, South Carolina, where I live with my wife of 39 years. I have 3 sons and 4 grandchildren. And I actually work in Washington, D.C., so my office is there, and I commute up to Washington usually about once a week.
That's great. And as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know, it's interesting because I think when I was doing the things I did as a teenager, impersonating a pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, I really had no desire to be any of those people. I think I always wanted to be much like my dad, an entrepreneur who owned his own business and ran his own business, no matter what that business might have been. It might have been retail. In my father's case, it was a retail stationery store. But I ended up, ironically, that's what I ended up doing, is in the last 40 years having my own business and running my own business. So I ended up really kind of doing what I really wanted to do.
That's wonderful. Very few people get to actually do what they wanted to do when they grew up.
That's right.
So there's all of these attacks going on, cybersecurity-wise. What keeps you up at night these days with regards to cybersecurity?
You know, I always like to look at crimes in the future. You know, teaching at the FBI Academy, I always like to have taught agents to look 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead about what kind of crimes will you be investigating. And cybercrime to me has always, to this point, been a financial crime, so it's a means of making money. What I see in the next few years is it's going to be much more of a blacker crime. So, for example, we have the ability now to shut someone's pacemaker off from 35 feet away. So you could literally kill them by speeding it up, or any body device run by a chip or a computer. I see about 5 years from now you'd be able to do that from thousands of miles away, from Russia or from China or from anywhere else. We have the ability now to stop a vehicle in a chase at 35 feet from the vehicle. We can shut the power to the vehicle. We can turn on the airbags. We can apply the brakes. We can lock the individual in the car so they can't get out of the car. But again, 5 years from now, I think you'll see the ability to do that from thousands of miles away. So if you're riding down Interstate 95 on the East Coast at 70 miles an hour and they turn your airbag on, that could be very devastating. So I think you're going to see a lot of that turn the other way to where it's going to become a much more blacker crime. And certainly there's always a threat against our cyber threats against our infrastructure, electrical grids, and things of that nature. And those are things that worry me the most.
So someone like myself, a regular consumer, what tips would you give me to protect my online identity?
Well, first of all, you know, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on LinkedIn. I have no problem with social media, and having 3 sons and 4 grandchildren that love it, I just literally, as their grandfather and their father, taught them to use it properly. So I tell people you never want a straight photograph of yourself on Facebook, because there are too many technologies today based on facial recognition, like PitPat, for example, that they can identify you just from your picture that they take of you in the airport to go to your Facebook page. And then if on your Facebook page you happen to tell me where you were born and your date of birth, that's 98% of me stealing your identity. So I always tell people you never want to have a straight photograph of yourself. Have a photograph of you with a group of friends. You're playing volleyball, you're shooting a hoop, you're doing some activity. And you, of course, never, ever want to state on your Facebook page where you were born and your date of birth. What is amazing is all the information when you interrogate identity thieves that say, I just go to Facebook because they tell me who they're married to, their wife's maiden name, their children's name, where they went to school, what kind of cars they drive. This is why we have a big problem today with KBA, knowledge-based authentication. It worked great for years because only you knew what kind of cars you owned when I asked you that question as a security question. Today, because you told me on Facebook, or I can go to the motor vehicle department and look it up,
right.
There's nothing you can't do, say that I can't go find out.
Or even look back at my old photos and see that car.
And even if you take LinkedIn and you say you graduated from University of Arizona, I can go to University of Arizona, look at the year you graduated, see who your friends were, maybe who who you dated and then ended up marrying, so I know that person's maiden name. Every piece of information leads to another piece of information. So I think as a society, we give away all this information and then we wonder why someone stole our identity. So you have to be a little smarter about what we say and what we do.
Right, that's great. And where did you find your passion for cybersecurity?
Well, when I started with the FBI, there was no cybersecurity, so I dealt mainly with forgeries and counterfeit paper crimes. And then I spent the first 20 years of my life dealing mainly with developing technologies that went into paper or into plastic from being counterfeited and altered. Then as cybercrime and the computer came along, I quickly realized that was going to become global and was going to give people a lot more means to reach other people. And so then my whole interest in those crimes changed. And I was forced to change also because crime was changing. I had to change with those crimes and start to learn about those crimes. And cybercrime is fascinating because every day there's a new way to get to someone or get someone's information or steal somebody's money.
Yeah. And what do you think about passwords? Are their days numbered?
Absolutely, passwords are over. They're the simplest way. If I can get your password and your email or your access code, I'm in. That's all I need are those two things, and then I'm you. No one knows on the other end of the computer that I'm not you. They only know what I coded and keyed on the keystroke into the system. So those days of passwords are over, and that's why we needed to come up with a much better way, and that's why I'm so happy about Trusona and so happy to be involved with it, that we can literally do away with the need for passwords and be 100% safer in identifying who is on the other end of that device.
Frank, thank you so much for joining us at TruClub Interviews today.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And join us again for our future videos that we'll be posting every month. Thank you.